Okay, so hello and welcome to my talk. Today I will start with the question: do we as developers have some kind of feature, something that makes us special, maybe different from other industries? And to answer this question, I will focus on our development process, because everything starts with some unusual idea when business comes to us and wants us to create something remarkable. And on the happy path, we have the time to sit down and think about architecture, about edge cases, and then we sit down and start to create. Create, this word is important here. Did you notice that everything that we do before going to the production is fragile, is very easy to remove? Moreover, everything that we do can be done in so many other ways. We can choose different architectures, frameworks, libraries and languages, and at the end some developer may change the name of your class. And that's because there is not so many constraints on our work. When I would like to create the house on the tree, well, physics is quite important here, right? But we operate on the abstraction. When I would like to create house on the, when I would tell you about the factories in my solution, no one will ask about pollution. And if I will tell you about the builders in my code, no one will ask about human rights. And thanks to that, we can create awesome stuff. We can create whole other worlds, just like MMORPG games. We can create AI that competes with the best of the best chess players and even generate some useful code. We can even help sending rockets to the moon. And for me personally, this ability to reforging our thoughts to something real is amazing. This is one of the reasons why I'm in this industry at the first place. But we should not be too self-confident, because even Superman, the man who has the super in his name, has a flaw. In his case, that was the Kryptonite, the material that makes him weak and more likely to get hurt. And the goal of my talk would be to show you what is our Kryptonite, why do we change some project, why some companies are better than others. And during this talk you may think, well, I do not agree with you, you are wrong. And you know what? I'm fine with that, because that talk was created based on my experience, based on people which I met and stories which I heard. Your career, your path could be way different than mine. So if you do not agree with me, please find me somewhere at the conference or at after party and share your story. Maybe thanks to that, this talk will be better. But if you have the questions, you can use the Slido. Okay, so let's start with the first, Kryptonite, all fancy stuff that we want to have in our CV. Do you remember this excitement as the juniors when you were attending to the conferences or meetups and you heard about some new amazing sexy tools? And first thing that I wanted to do is to go to my project, to my company, and just implement this right away. Of course, after some time, when we gather some experience and become more and more senior, our perspective on those new shiny stuff kinda change. Because we start to understand that if we are at the conference and we are hearing about some new concepts, most probably we are hearing about happy paths, about most common use cases. And we should not blame speakers for that, because, well, they have only 40 minutes for introducing something new for us. But if we will not be aware of that, we can end up as the victims of the marketing. And here I have example for you when I think we did become the victims. So, do you know what the architecture it is? It's a simple question. Maybe someone, I know it's late and you have no energy, but maybe someone will have the idea. Okay, I know. Okay, so I will answer that for you. Yeah, this is just the layered architecture. In this particular example, our every layer can communicate only with the layer below, and this layer below defines the interface of the communication. So let's change just a little bit our architecture, and now domain defines all the communication between those layers. Do you have any idea how we can call this? Hexagonal, exactly, thank you. And I know this is not what you can Google. Image would be different, but we will come to that. So our domain can communicate with database, but also our domain can communicate with some external systems. Our domain can be called by API, but can be called by more than one API. And if we are talking about interfaces, well, we can introduce them as the building blocks of our interfaces. If we have interfaces, we have the implementation of them. And now our architecture looks quite different, more complex, and nothing changed. But I'm personally not a huge fan of implementation and interfaces notation, so let's play with some words. Let's rename our interfaces as ports, and everything that use those interfaces or implements them, let's rename this as the adapters. So now we have ports and adapter architecture. And as the side note, I'm talking about most common understanding of the ports and adapter architecture, because there is a discussion what the port and adapter architecture is. So if someone is interested, we can talk about this after this talk. Okay, so if we have the ports and adapter architecture, we can go even forward and introduce the hexagonal architecture by changing this middle block. And this architecture and this one are quite similar. But about this one, it's very hard to sell workshops, books, talks at the conferences. It's quite hard. But they are quite similar. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the looking at the same problem with the different perspective, but we need to be aware that some solutions are quite similar, because if we do not, we can end up at the place when there is too much to learn. Let's imagine that we have the junior who comes to our industry and, well, he or she needs to learn about onion architecture, hexagonal architecture, port and adapter architecture, and I even heard the name modern architecture. It's quite a lot, right? And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to be a part of the interview when our guest was the Uncle Bob. That was one of the best days of my life, to be honest. And one of the questions which we asked was, how often do we, as industry, reinvent a wheel? And Bob said, well, we are doing that all the time. So maybe this new, sexy, great tool which we want to use, it's just something that is ported from other language. Or this is the new DSL that just use something new and new API of the Java, for example. Also, I've noticed that our common understanding of some tools, technologies, are represented by the topics at the conferences, just like this one. At start, we have the topics very positive. We are talking about how awesome, how amazing this tool is. Most probably, authors of those tools are the authors at the conferences of those talks. Very fast, we have the talks about how to implement this in your current framework. But if you will wait long enough, you will have the topics that, well, this tool is not so awesome. We use this and something failed. Those are the best topics because, well, they are honest. Those people use those tools, but they failed. If you will wait again some years, you will have the topics more pragmatic. How amazing this tool is, but in the particular examples, in particular cases. And I think microservices are at this fourth point. But we had to wait a lot of years to achieve this point. But when we have these new amazing tools, we want to use this right away in our project. So what should we do? We should try to understand internals of those new tools. We can do that by, for example, going to the documentation and try to crunch it up. We can go to talks or watch this on the YouTube and find some blog posts of the authors just to try to understand what problem they want to solve. Or we can find similarities between technologies. For example, if we take the GraphQL, we can say that GraphQL is like SQL for the front end. Because in the SQL, you just took some fields, you just select some fields, and you have the response in those fields you got. And in the GraphQL, this is the case. So you can find some similarities. Thanks to that, you will know how to use those tools, but also you will know how to reject them. Rejecting the tools is quite important. Because we don't want to use only all fancy stuff in our technology stuff, in our technology stack. For example, if we will go with the metaphor of the GraphQL, in the SQL, if you do too complex query, you can wait a lot of time to get the response. And this is exactly the case for the GraphQL. If you do too big query or too complex query, you will wait a lot of time. So maybe you don't want to give GraphQL to the young front-end team. And of course, rejecting the tools are amazing and important for us as the developers because, well, we want this project to be successful and new tools will not provide this because there is no silver bullet in our industry. Even ChatGPT is not the silver bullet. And if we are talking about silver bullets and the new amazing stuff, we should also look into those legacy ones, the second side of the same coin. Legacy system has such a bad popularity that if in the group of people you will admit that you work with the legacy system, people will treat you better because they will feel sorry for you. And that's mean that we are empathic developers, so I think that's great. I prepared for you the story about construction industry. I know we are not alike, but I think you will find some similarities. So a few years ago, I was at the Barcelona. And one of the points of the trip was the going to the Sagrada Familia. This is the church which was started building at 1880, and they still did not finish that project. They did estimate around this year, but they did postpone it because, well, they failed. So this is the definition of the legacy system, right? Also, this project was designed by Mr. Antonio Gaudi, the one of the best architects which even lived. But yeah, that's how internet describes him because I don't know nothing about this industry, so I believe the internet. Unfortunately, in the 1926, he was hit by the troller car and he died. And lack of the main architect and the fact that, well, that wasn't the best time for the Europe, the project was stopped. Of course, after some time when they gathered the money and the people, the project was resumed. And let's look on the results. So this is the old part of this church. This is the part which Antonio Gaudi designed. And the idea of his was to create the project without any edges. And the result was that building looks like it would be built by the sand. But the second side of the same building looks quite different. It's look more modern. And yeah, there is a lot of edges here. So when I was going from one side to another of the same building, I thought, well, something is wrong here. This project, it's not consistent. And I asked the tour guide, why the hell it happens? And he said, well, you know, because architects who came to this project wanted to give some personal touch to this project. And I was wondering, isn't that something that we are doing? We are coming to some old project, we see that they don't have new Java, and we will migrate that. We see that you don't have Kubernetes, that will solve all your problems. And I hope we are doing that because we believe that those actions will solve some problems, but we can create inconsistency. And those are the types of inconsistency that we can achieve. First one is technological. It's when we have two classes and we know which one is the old one. Because, for example, it doesn't use the new API of the Java. It hurt us as the developers, but it may not affect our business in a significant way. The problems occur at the second type, functional. It's when we have two modules and they misbehave. For example, we migrate system from the SQL to the Java, and they miscalculate some values. In one system, we did rounding up the whole expression, whole math expression, and second system, we did rounding up every part of the expression. And, well, we are talking about money, so there is a problem. And those kind of problems are caused by something which is called the conceptual inconsistency. It's when we as the teammates misunderstand each other, as we as the team and the business misunderstand each other. And here I could talk about DDD, bounded context, ubiquitous language, and so on, but it's not that kind of talk. But we need to remember that this type of inconsistency may happen also in time. It's when we as the team think about some concept differently than someone who worked here a few years ago. And those kind of problems are caused by something which I like to call life cycle of the decision. Life cycle of the decision is the concept which contains few generations of the developers. First generation appear when there is a problem to solve. Those people are in the project, problem appear, and they need to focus, they need to have the solutions, they have the problem to solve, and they know all the concept, all the context of those on this decision. After some time, new generation appear. The people who hear about this problem somewhere in the kitchen, for example, but they don't know everything about this. They just hear about something. After some time, next generation appear, and those people don't know anything about this problem, but they live with the consequences of the choices of the first generation. And the worst thing that could happen is that this problem may appear again, and those people will need to solve this problem once again without any knowledge from the previous generations. So to avoid those kind of problem, we should do everything in our power to avoid this third generation to ever appear by giving possibility to learn for the second generation. And we can do this by using few tools. For example, we can use architectural decision record. And personally, I'm a huge fan of this concept. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's just a list of all important architectural decisions. Architectural. Does it mean that I'm, as the developer from one little team which just care about one microservice, should I do entry of in this architectural decision record? Maybe, maybe not. I think we should. But what can I write there? For example, let's say that we as the platform, we will treat our user X as the user pro, the same way. Is it the architectural decision? It doesn't seem so. It seems like business decision. Okay, so let's change the amount of services, instances of the services in our platform. Is it the architectural decision? Maybe, or maybe infrastructural. Okay, so once again, let's move one aggregate from one service to another. Is it the architectural decision? Now it's maybe the architectural decision, but maybe it's because I use the aggregate word here. And for me personally, that's all depends on our definition of the architectural. Once Martin Fowler said that architecture is important stuff, whatever it is. So if we will look at our architecture decision record in that way, maybe we just have the list of all important decisions. And every of those decisions may be a part of those, but maybe not. It all depends on you, on your context, how important it is, how complex it is. And also me, as the developer, can create, together with my teammates, my own decision records, right? Because it's not affect whole platform, but our little team. And every of those architectural decision records or just decision records will have some kind of starting point, why they even exist. Sometimes it's because, well, business had some idea. Sometimes it's because some technology is no longer supported. And sometimes it's because something bad happened on the production. And when those things happen, well, first, you should fix those. But then it's worth to sit down and just start to thinking what we can make better. And if you will have ever possibility to facilitate those kind of meetings, you need to remember that in those meetings people may be afraid. And you may ask yourself, why? Well, we are humans. And if something bad happened in your system, most probably people are afraid because they will be the one who are guilty. They are be the one who will be taken to responsibility. That's why if you facilitate those kind of meetings, you should all the time focus on the action points, never on finding the guilty people, and create atmosphere that everyone can share their thoughts and opinions, even if they are wrong. Because thanks to that, your documents, which should be written after that, will be comprehensive. And even if those documents will be comprehensive and your decision records will be amazing, still you can achieve the situation when new people who will come to your company, to your project, will have the problem with understanding them. And those kind of situations you can notice here at the conference. When you see the group of people who work together and you're just standing right away next to them and you hear about what are they talking about. You understand technical stuff, but some words are not fits there. And that's because, well, they depend on the context, on the business, maybe they are specific for some company. And to avoid those kind of problems on your project, you should just introduce the dictionary of the definitions. And it's not hard to do. You just need to take some names of the services, You should take the name of the aggregates, maybe big entities, and just write it down in one document, and then write the description of it, and maybe translation, because it depends how we communicate with the business. And thanks to those tools, and maybe even more, you can help your project to become legacy, because every project who provides value will eventually become legacy. And it's not a bad thing. It's mean that it's long enough and provide value. But our goal should be to help our project to become the graceful legacy, not the chaotic one. And if we will understand that, next time when we come to some legacy old project, maybe we should start to thinking why people made some decision and try to understand their context, not to be a judge who just come and say, yeah, you should not do that. That's wrong. Maybe that's good decision, but with some context and some knowledge. I hope those kind of approach will help us to decrease number of hate which we have between generations when someone hates me for the project which I created a few years ago. And of course, if we are talking about hate, I would like to talk about Scrum. When first time I heard about Scrum, I was just overjoyed. I thought that's the perfect way of working. We all should go with the Scrum, because let's look at the Agile Manifesto. People and interaction over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. That still sounds good. It still sounds like I want people to work like that. But somewhere down the line, some companies achieved something which is by many people called Corpo-Scrum. So I thought, well, let's try to create the Corpo-Scrum Manifesto. In Corpo-Scrum environment, you need to estimate everything. Every proof of concept, every meeting, every spike, every break. And you should do that in the hours, minutes, seconds, because you know there is no developer, if you force them to estimate in time, that they will tell you the wrong number, the higher number, just to feel comfortable. And also, what if I will estimate my task for 1 day and we have a bunch of meetings? What should we do then? Should I just close this task because, well, I didn't have time to work with, or should it's okay that I will work 3 days, but I estimate 1 day? What the hell? Also, you should stand up during meetups, because that's the value of the Scrum, that we will stand up, because standing is healthy, and we as a company care about your health. Some companies want you to care about burn down chart or artifacts in the Scrum as much as the business value. Well, they may provide some useful information. For example, me personally, I'm looking at those like burn down charts like on the code coverage. If it doesn't look good, maybe we should look into that. Maybe something is to fix. But if it's look good, it's mean nothing. It's still we could have the problems in this project. And some companies even achieve the greatest level when the product owner and Scrum Masters are as important as business. Don't get me wrong, product owner and Scrum Master are important, but the best of the best Scrum Masters which I work with, their goal was to be unneeded. Their goal was to learn us, teach us how to be agile, what does it mean to be agile, how to use Scrum correctly, and that's why they were needed in our team. And exactly the same case with the product owner. They are great because they translate the two words, but nothing will replace the honest relationship with business when we just can sit down, look into their eyes and say, okay, but why the hell you need this red button? And it's very hard to find the words to describe how people feel who need to work with the Corpo-Scrum. Even Ken Beck was asked what he feel about the Agile Manifesto after 20 years after he signed it, and he said that Agile is just a wasteland. It's just a bunch of people who are making the rituals which they don't know why they exist in the first place. And it's kind of hard to disagree, right? We create tools that are the reason of our failure. We create the tools where people leave our company. And just remind, and maybe not for you, because, well, you are here today with us at this late hour, so most probably you know that, but for your friends or teammates, that our goal as the team is to provide the value for the business, and the goal of the Scrum was never to create strict rules that will just block us. Goal of the Scrum was to create template that we can work with and help us. Because being agile doesn't mean that I will read just one book and follow all the rules and yay, I'm agile. No, being agile means that I can adapt to actual situation, and not only for the external factors, but also for the internal ones, because our team may be different from one to another. Maybe they like to estimate in the time, maybe they like to estimate in the t-shirt size, maybe they don't like Scrum, they want to use Kanban, they want to use Scrumban, no problem. But let them experiment and let them make some kind of decision and just evaluate if this decision is good. But if you as the leader or someone important in your company wants your company to be agile, you need to create a place when everyone can just raise a hand and say, okay, but can we do something better? I don't like the way how we work right now. I mean, everyone can just raise a hand and say something like that, but don't fire this person right away. First listen, then you can fire. And that way we come to the tribal knowledge. You know, those campfire stories which we tell from one generation to the old one, to the second one. You know, when junior come to your company and, well, they are afraid, but they are looking around and they see him, the knight in the shining armor. You know, this is just a senior in the conference t-shirt. But the seniors comes to them, look into their eyes and said, remember one thing and one thing only. Premature optimization is root of all evil. At the start of my career, this quote was quite popular and a lot of people were using that. And, well, still some people are using that, but some of people don't remember that this quote is just a part of something bigger. The original quote sounds like, yes, in 97%, premature optimization is the root of all evil, but still you should care about this free critical percentage. And that's the problem with the quotes, right? That we can just take a part of it and share something what is not true. But there are more problems with the quotes, because I always thought that Uncle Bob wants me to have the 100% of my code coverage. Then I found his blog post, then I found his tweets when he said that, well, you can aim for 100%, but you will never achieve that. And I was like, what the hell? Did he change his opinion? Or did I misunderstand him? I mean, both options are valid, right? We don't understand some authors and share something which is not true, but also authors may change their opinions about something. So this is the problem with the sharing the quotes. But also it's not the problem with the quotes, it's problem with all the knowledge. For example, with the graphs. Do you have any idea what this graph represents? This is the knowledge and confidence relationship. Do you know how we can call this effect? I don't hear you, but let's say that you said that Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, yes, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And if you will Google it, Dunning-Kruger effect in the IT industry, on the left side you will see that you have the juniors, you know, people who are too self-confident. Here at the middle you have this depression of the mid-developer. But on the right side, you have this amazing place when everyone know everything and know what they lack of. And here are seniors, architects, senior ninja architects, and so on. But there's a problem here. Dunning-Kruger did not check experience. What they did, they took people from the college around the same age, because, well, this is the college, and they did ask them about some basic abilities. They did ask them about humor, about logical reasoning, and about grammar. And, well, those are the abilities which everyone uses every day, right? So they did estimate themselves quite high, around 70%. So if I will ask you about feature that you have, some ability that you have, and you are using this all the time, most probably you will estimate yourself higher. For example, let's say that I would ask you about your testing abilities. If you have if you have enough experience and the Dunning-Kruger is right, most probably, most of you would estimate yourself above average. And so that's why you should never ask those kind of questions on the interview, because, well, we know what the answer will be. After reading this research, I prepared for you more accurate Dunning-Kruger effect than this one which you can find on the internet, and I split this on the two halves. On the left side, you have the people who know that they don't know anything. For example, if you would ask me how I'm good at cooking, I know there is an app for that and just deliver you a food. So I'm on the left, here on the right side. So if I will learn, on anyone of us will learn, eventually we will end up at the place when Dunning-Kruger effect will kicks in. And here we have some abilities, but we still lack of knowledge what we are bad of, what we should learn. But after some time, if we will gather more knowledge, we will in the place when we know where we are and what we need to learn also. But some people may achieve the level that they underestimate themselves. I think every one of us met someone who just were talking like, yeah, this is so obvious, it's so simple to do, right? I met those kind of people at my university, that when I always ask those questions to my professors, like why this happens, so they were looking at me like some kind of moron, and they were just, yeah, it's so simple. Yeah, that was simple for them, but they didn't remember that gather this knowledge was hard at the first place. So Dunning-Kruger affect us all, even if we are seniors, architects, everyone, and we should remember that. And well, there is more of them, right? There is more of those myths, legends, which we share across generations, and I always thought that we as the developers will never do that, because, well, we are logical beings. We should not do that, right? But we do. And I thought, well, okay, so what is the reason for that? And one of the answers which I found is the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency for us to just believe in information that confirm our way of thinking. So if we think that juniors are too self-confident, then we will believe without checking double time Dunning-Kruger effect. So this is something that affects us all as the community, as the industry, so it's good to remember that every time when we share some information. And in last 30 few minutes, I was talking that, well, we are awful as the industry. We are not that awful. But I did not answer you the question, what is our kryptonite? Is it that all new fancy stuff that we want to have in our CV? Or is it the legacy system that block us from evolving and becoming better developers? Or technology doesn't matter and what matters is the way of working? Or that everything is just something, legends, stories which we share across the generations, but we do not check those informations. And personally, I think that that could be all of them, or neither of them, or something else, because it all depends on you, on your situation, at your career, on the place where you actually are. But still, we should think about why they even exist. And I think one of the reasons was that our generation, our industry is quite young. We have less than 100 years, right? And our current way of working is around, I don't know, 30. So we are quite young. We did not have the time to establish some definitions, good practice, and even a few years ago, Martin Fowler did the blog post about building architect, that we are looking at our architects just how we are looking at the construction industry. And that's not the way how we should look into. But we are still doing that. We are quite young, but I think we can do that better. If we will be aware of our flaws, if we will be aware of what we can do better, and we will try to do that, we can create better industry for the next generations. And this is my wish for all of us, to fight our kryptonites together, whatever it is, and whatever it will be in the future. My name is Sebastian Rabiej, and that was a pleasure to be here today with you. I'm the software developer at Software Mill. We have Java, Kotlin, we have the Scala, we have everything what's funny, and I'm also the leader of the Wrocław Juk. If you want to come to our meetups or become the speaker, also invite you to go there. Thank you again, and you are here today with me at those late hours, so remember, you are amazing, and thank you for that. That's hard. Okay, so yeah, we have the questions here. I know who did that. Okay. Isn't it better to have inconsistency architecture that it's in 25% okay than having consistency 100% unbenefit and bad? Well, I think it's okay. That's kind of good question, but what does it mean that we have the architecture that is inconsistency, but that's okay? So if our architecture is okay, but something we did wrong decisions about it, it's the story of our lives, right? So we often do some kind of bad decisions, but what does it mean that architecture is 100% and it's bad? So this is the question for you.
Typically, it's never actually a 100% unfit, but I'd rather thinking because actually I am fighting with consistency because I find it a way that if you realize that the projects, for instance, there were wrong decisions, and now you have basically sometimes a decision, either you rewrite everything because of consistency, or you actually only change some parts, but now you have inconsistency.
Okay. Okay, I understand what you mean. Okay, so what Jarek said, that sometimes, well, you don't want to rewrite everything because of the consistency, and I fully agree with you. For example, in this talk, I was talking about the functional inconsistency. We can accept that because it hurt us as the developers, but still it doesn't affect the business. And but if you have the functional inconsistency or the conceptual, so maybe it's worth to work with because it doesn't. It's not the infrastructural parts or services and so on. It's something that we can work with the business without changing code. So it depends on what we want to change. And I see that you are happy with those questions. Why in text? I love you for this question. I waited a lot of time for this question. I waited a lot of time for someone to notice that, yes, every E in my not every, in my chapters, when they start, they are green because Kryptonite. So yeah, this is something that I just invent. And that's one of the slides is different because I wanted to have single E in my text. So yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you for those great questions, and you are amazing. And we are meet at the after party and at the conference. If you have questions, please share them with me. So yeah, thank you once again.